hustle trap. What every artist needs to unlearn. In recent years, hustle has become a buzzword in creative circles, especially amongst independent creatives. It used to signal ambition, self-discipline, and the willingness to do whatever it takes to build a career without traditional backing. From social media captions to artist interviews, the message is clear. If you're not constantly producing, promoting, creating, pushing, and repeating, you're falling behind. But where did this mindset come from? And what exactly is it costing us? Let's unpack. The word hustle wasn't always aspirational. Its roots trace back to the Dutch husselen, meaning to shake, push, or toss. By the 1800s, in American English, it carried undertones of coercion, urgency, and sometimes even deception. To hustle could mean to hurry, yes, but also to con someone, to survive through side gigs or street smarts in a rigged system. It wasn't until the late 20th and early 21st centuries, particularly through hip-hop and start-up culture, that hustle was rebranded as a virtue, a symbol of self-discipline, agency, of making something from nothing. I'm not a businessman, I'm a business man. Quote by Jay-Z. I've been grinding all my life, sacrificed, hustle paid the price. Nipsey Hussle, ironic name there. Hustle beats talent when talent doesn't hustle. That's by Ross Simons, frequently quoted by independent musicians. For many independent artists today, hustle still carries that meaning. Self-reliance, resilience. But over time, the word has lost its edges. Today, hustle culture is less about empowerment and more about exhaustion. It quietly demands that you produce constantly, promote relentlessly, and rest only when successful, whatever that means. A state that remains ever out of reach. If you felt this pressure, you're not alone, and it's not your fault. Because hustle culture as it exists today is less about freedom than it is about conforming to a system designed for machines, not artists. Let me explain. Before clocks, there was rhythm. For most of human history, time was not linear. It was lived. In agrarian Europe, pre-colonial India, indigenous North America, and beyond, communities moved with the rhythms of land and season. The day was governed by light, not alarms. There were times to sow, to rest, to gather. The body had authority. So did the sky. Artists whether musicians, craftspeople, or storytellers, worked within these rhythms. They weren't expected to grind. They were expected to contribute to the wholeness of life, not churn out constant output. So time was relational, not extractive. Then came the clock. The Industrial Revolution brought a seismic shift. Factories didn't just change how things were made, they changed how people thought about time. As E.P. Thompson outlines in Time, Work, Discipline, and Industrial Capitalism, a book from 1967, factory work required a new kind of discipline. Time became a currency. Every moment not used was considered lost. This logic quickly spread beyond factories. Schools, offices, governments, and eventually colonial systems. All of these began measuring human value in hours and output. Rest was no longer part of the rhythm, not officially anyway. It was considered a disruption to the bottom line. And in this context, the hustler emerged as a figure navigating industrial expectations without industrial support. Especially in communities excluded from power, hustling became a necessary and often noble form of survival. But the global export of this mindset through colonial education, capitalism, and algorithmic culture more recently has left a quieter legacy, one in which artists now try to survive systems that were never built to support their actual process. The masculinization of time is a theme you might want to address at this point. Bear with. Hustle culture glorifies traits that align with traditionally masculine-coded ideals. Stuff like linearity over cycles, speed over depth, external metrics over internal meaning, output over process. This leaves little room for practices that unfold slowly or cyclically, like songwriting, deep listening, recovery, or even improvisation, even though that might have different interpretations. That doesn't mean, though, that these processes are inefficient. They're simply incompatible with the factory model of success. And many artists internalize that incompatibility as failure. That's where it gets really tricky. I've heard it in coaching sessions again and again. I feel like I'm behind. If I stop posting, I disappear. I want to rest, but I'm scared I'll lose momentum. This isn't laziness. It's the logical outcome of living in a system where your worth is measured in visibility and velocity. So, when does hustle become a trap? To be clear, hard work is not the enemy. Many of us found our footing through seasons of intense quote-unquote hustle. I'm just going to go with it for the sake of a thought experiment. Yeah, it got us off the ground. It taught us resilience. But when that intensity becomes default, when you can't stop without the guilt, something's off. Hustle, once a tool for liberation, becomes a ritual of self-erasure. The artist disappears behind the algorithm, the music or the art or the creative process loses its joy. The nervous system quietly collapses under pressure. That's not freedom. That's extraction. So, reclaiming rhythm. What's the alternative here? Well, for one, it's not to stop working. I'd contend it's more about remembering the difference between effort and overextension. It's about working with your body instead of against it. To design your creative practice around energy, not just urgency. To build careers that honor your output without sacrificing your inner life. 5 steps to help. 5 grounded, actionable steps you can take right now to begin disentangling from hustle culture without compromising your momentum or creative integrity. You ready for this? Number 1, redefine what productive means to you. Not all progress is visible. Write your definition of a productive day that includes reflection, listening, and rest. Try replacing, quote-unquote, did I get enough done with, quote-unquote, did I move with intention? Hot tip, start tracking how you feel after creative sessions, not just what you produced. This was a concept I was introduced to first when I started working with Kai Eckhart as a mentee in his mentorship program. We had a system where we'd do a bunch of exercises. We could choose what for 108 days without a break. Well, only 12 days were allowed to be taken off in between. And if you had a 13th day where you didn't do your little regimen, little ritual, you had to start from top. And at the end of each day, at each practice session, you had to rate your emotional quotient, your emotional status from 1 to 10. It was a game changer. So that was number 1. Redefine what productive means to you and start tracking how you feel after every creative session, not just what you produced. Number 2, awareness. Awareness around time. Not just time management, so time awareness. Work on time awareness as a skill as opposed to time management as an isolated form of art. Instead of scheduling every hour, begin observing your energy cycles throughout the day and week. When are you most focused? When does your creative energy peak? Hot tip, use a calendar or journal to log your natural rhythm for 1 week. Align demanding tasks with high energy windows and reserve lower energy periods for admin or rest. Now, for you creative types, especially artists, especially performing artists, especially touring performing artists, this is going to be a lot more complex than meets the eye. I can confirm as a touring musician who works 7 time zones as a coach between multiple demographics that this is not a perfect plan. But here's the thing, having it in place in the first place helps me gauge exactly where my position is as far as my definition of time management or time awareness is concerned. Does that make sense? It's a compass. So it's not about nailing it perfectly, but having a system in the first place. You can gauge your quote-unquote performance in aligning to it. So that was number 2. Build time awareness, not just time management. Number 3. Create without posting. Now this might sound a little lame, and this isn't the first time I'm talking about this, but give yourself permission, please, to make something that never sees the feed. Let go of quote-unquote content and return to practice. This builds depth, confidence, and resilience. Hot tip to add: set aside one session a week at least that is explicitly non-shareable. No cameras, no captions, just art. That was number 3. Create without posting. Number 4. Use boundaries as a creative tool. Set time limits on how long you'll engage with admin work like emails, socials, promotions, and stick to them. Boundaries don't limit you. They protect your creative capacity. Hot tip: try the 2-hour rule. Cap admin tasks at 2 hours a day max. The rest is studio, recovery, presence time, self-care, music practice, rehearsals, and so on. So that was number 4. Use boundaries as a creative tool. Number 5. Schedule recovery like you schedule releases. This is big. Rest is not the reward, it's the foundation. If you've ever worked with a personal trainer on your workout routines or your physical fitness, you'll know the importance of rest between your workouts. Your workouts are only as effective as the rest you've planned in between them. When you try and get a workout plan together, the rest you plan into it is one of the most important and vital things that's part of it. Try and transfer that system to your artistic practice as well. There are a lot of parallels there. Add intentional pauses to your calendar. Seasonal breaks, digital detox days, or unscheduled weekends before you need them. Tip: block off at least one weekend a month that's untouchable. No gigs, no emails, just realignment. I hope that helps. The word hustle has been taking over in a lot of creative spaces, and personally, I do have my reservations on the connotations it comes with. I mean, full disclosure, this is going to get slightly R-rated, but I grew up in an era where the word hustle was intricately connected to porn, really. Hustler was the kind of magazine most horny teenagers were out to hustle for. I think that says it all. I think the general connotations and associations that had always been an inherent part of this word need to be examined, dissected, and reinterpreted, or even maybe rejected. So if you're a professional creative, this is my invitation to you to consider reframing your entire workflow into something that's a little more holistic, healthy, and kinder to yourself and your artistic practice. Hope that helps.
Hey folks, I hope you found that episode helpful. Here's a little request. If you did, consider sharing this episode with your folks. Think about the ways in which they might benefit the way you did. And please don't ever hesitate to reach out if you have queries. My name's TL. I'm an independent musician and educator and the founder of the Holistic Musician Academy.